You're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek, where we discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings found in all the Star Trek TV series, movies, and more. And today we're discussing the next episode of Star Trek Prodigy Season 2, The Fast and the Curious. I'm Dom Bettinelli, and joining me today on the panel are Father Jason Tyler. Hey, Father.
Hello.
And Jimmy Akin. Hey, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
Folks, be sure to stick around to the end of the episode for more of our listener feedback from you, our listeners. We love to get that feedback. Be sure to get your very own Secrets of Star Trek t-shirt or other merch, like I'm wearing our SQPN shirt today, by visiting sqpn.com/merch. And another show on the StarQuest Network I'm sure you'll enjoy is called The Secrets of Movies and TV Shows, where we talk about all the other stuff that isn't in Doctor Who, Stargate, the specific shows that we do. And you can find that wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/secrets. So, Jimmy, can you give us a recap of what happens in The Fast and the Curious?
This week, the kids are on their way to the planetoid where Chakotay is, and they take an abandoned Borg transwarp corridor to get there. But a Kazon probe intercepts them and drives them to a different planet. There, a Kazon with multiple personality disorder forces them to pod race to earn their freedom. So nothing will happen with the plot until the visual chaos of the pod race is over. The pod race is interrupted by an accident, and the kids learn that the Kazon is being controlled by an AI, hence the multiple personality disorder. The AI has decided that it must train the best pilot ever, so it's using mind control tech to force people to train. And it grabs the kids and starts subjugating them. But Zero tears his arms and legs off and smashes into the AI. This causes a huge explosion and everyone is freed, but Zero's containment suit can't be repaired. Back on Voyager, the personality-swapped holograms of the kids are avoiding being discovered, but at the end, Majel picks up some strange readings from the Gwyn hologram, goes to investigate, and suddenly everything on the ship slows down and stops, and weird transparent tentacles reach for the Gwyn hologram, which disappears, leaving her room empty. The end.
Father, what's your impression of this episode?
Not a bad episode. I got to admit, it's not one of them I'm more excited about in some ways, but I think it does move the story along and really helps this series live up even more to the idea of being the most Star Warsy of the Star Trek series.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Jimmy?
This one was not my favorite. Last week we had a side venture episode where they weren't really focusing on the main plot involving Chakotay and, the historical paradox and so forth. So that was kind of a distraction episode, and it's okay to have a distraction episode every so often, but then I want to get back to our main plot, and this week we did not. This was another distraction episode focused on pod racing, and I'm on record as far as how I feel about car chases.
Yes.
Nothing happens in a car chase until the car chase. Nothing happens with the plot in a car chase until the car chase is over. The only car chase that I've ever seen that I thought was well done and held my attention is the car chase in the French Connection. Mm-hmm. Everything else is just, here's boring stuff. Here's just mindless action on the screen until it's over. So this was, while there was okay stuff in this episode, it was not of interest to me very much.
I would say every car chase in every movie and TV show since the French Connection has been trying to recreate that magic.
Yeah.
Also, I think for the rest of the episode, I hereby nominate that we call it Pog-racing from now on. Okay.
We'll see.
We'll see. I agree with you both on this. It seemed a distraction from the main plot, and we've already been distracted. It feels like every sci-fi sort of show has to do a space race at some point.
Like season 7 episode Drive from the original Voyager. This was essentially a remake of that.
Right. We had Stargate has done it. Every TNG, I think, has done it. DS9 maybe have done it. It feels like every sci-fi show that has space feels like it needs to do some sort of space race. And so this was Prodigy's space race episode. There was some interesting little bits, like, what is going to happen to Zero now that he doesn't have,
Right.
His containment suit is now compromised. That's going to affect ongoing plot. So one of the things that kind of interested me is they're flying through the Delta Quadrant. I guess I didn't know, where is this mystery spiral system that they're heading to? It must be in the Delta Quadrant. And now we can fly to the Delta Quadrant instead of 70 plus years. We can go at the drop of a hat. It seems like Starfleet is no longer limited to nearby systems.
They have talked about this phenomenal speed of both the Protostar and the Infinity. So it's not like an ordinary ship can get there quickly. Although I was wondering, so they establish at the beginning that it's going to take, if they don't take the transwarp corridor there, which they fortuitously discover, it's going to take them 61 days to get to this system. And it's like, kids, you think those holograms are gonna impersonate you for 61 days, and then you're gonna rejoin Voyager? What are you thinking? Yeah. When they said we can get there and back before anybody notices, I'm thinking a couple of days maybe, but how do you even know where Voyager's going to be in 61 days?
Yeah.
Right.
They would probably be able to get to Earth and by, within the 61 days. And then that's a whole different sort of difficulty probably for them rejoining the ship.
Yeah, because it's going to be time for people to get off the ship and those holograms are going to vanish.
Right.
Yep. All right, then I can be able to go back to their prep school, their Starfleet Academy prep school that they've been, which is presumably where they'd be heading. So one of the things that I find interesting is just how Dal is trying to reassert his leadership. He kind of assumed being the captain of Protostar in the first season, just kind of took the seat. And the others kind of let him, mostly because he didn't have any of the specific skills that the others had. So he got to be captain. And he kind of starts to do that here again on Infinity, and they're having none of it. I found that interesting. They're pushing back on him now. He's no longer the de facto leader, which is probably just as well, because Dal means well, but he often screws up as often as he does something right, I guess.
There is some nice dialogue in this. One thing I liked was, so when they go into the transwarp corridor, this Kazon probe grabs onto their ship and, rattles it and then drives it out of the transwarp corridor to this planet. And as soon as it latches on and the ship rattles and they realize something's just attached itself to the outer hull, Gwyn says, "Zero, what in Stovokor is on our ship?"
Yeah.
And so I noted she did not say what in Grethor is on our ship. Grethor being the place of the dishonored dead and Stovokor being the place of the honored dead in Klingon religion. So she just said, "Zero, what in heaven is on our ship?" Not "Zero, what in hell is on our ship?"
Right. I noticed the same thing. It emphasizes how reminds us that Gwyn is an expert in languages. That she's one of the things she was trained to do was to be an expert in languages. So, which is useful. One of the things that I found interesting is that the transwarp conduit, did transwarp conduits always have a mechanical aperture?
No, I don't. No, they didn't. You sometimes had to send some kind of signal to activate them, but there wasn't like a jump gate at the end of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Probably the cubes themselves had a sort of a way to activate a conduit without a mechanical aperture, but I don't think we've ever seen one before. In what transwarp conduits? I wasn't sure. It is interesting, the whole being cramped in a very small ship as opposed to being in the Protostar, and that idea of having to live in small spaces together. Anyone who's ever had to live in a college dorm will recognize the living in small spaces for long periods of time. So I thought that was fun. One of the things that's important is that they kind of hint at is the kids, as soon as they find out it's a Kazon on this ship, they all react strongly, because it's important to remember they were all brought to the Diviner enslaved by Kazon. Kazon had captured them and enslaved them and brought them to the Diviner. So it's interesting, you see that trauma in them as they see Kazon, even though they're much more capable now than they were at the beginning of Prodigy season 1, and they can readily take on all kinds of challenges, but the Kazon still triggers something in them, which is interesting to see.
One of them even comments that they'd almost rather see a Borg than a Kazon.
Yeah, yeah. Which
I was pleased that for once the Kazon was not the villain, because we get very few sympathetic. I mean, the Kazon are Klingons with bad hair days, but and normally I don't like the Kazon at all. I think Voyager had missteps in using them and then didn't fix the missteps. It's not like the Ferengi where they were disastrously introduced and then got redeemed.
Right.
The Kazon are just kind of subpar villains to my mind, and I'm never really excited to see them, but I was pleased that in this case the Kazon is not the bad guy. He's fine. They're at the end. They've once he's freed from the mind control of the paperclip maker, then that's a inside philosophy joke. The idea of an AI that decides its mission is to make paperclips in life, and it's going to consume all matter on Earth to make paperclips. Which is what this thing has done. Only it's making pilots instead of paperclips. But once he's freed from the mind control of the AI, he's okay, and they bid him farewell and take off. I'm a little wondering, why are you stranding this guy? But maybe he's got his own spaceship there.
Yeah. I agree. I never really liked the Kazon. They just seemed too bombastic and scene chewing and over the top and unreasonable.
What they were going for, I've read about what the writers intended, and they had all those different groups of Kazon, like the Kazon Nistrum and the Kazon, I don't know, Oglala or whatever. That was Oglala is the Native American tribe. But they were trying to model them after street gangs. And so, being out in LA, writing about street gangs and trying to put them on screen and in a sci-fi context, that's kind of what they were going for, which, leads to some of the immaturity that the Kazons display, because street gangs are usually run by young people, and young people are not particularly mature. So I guess that could explain some of it, but I just never thought they worked.
Yeah. I agree.
And from what I remember from Voyager, the Kazon were kind of shown as being technologically a couple steps behind the Federation. Like they never had transporters. And so this was one of my first things to say, hey, what's going on here? When it's a Kazon device that stops the Infinity, and basically these kids get kidnapped by Kazon or taken prisoner there. So I was wondering first, how are the Kazon able to do this? And of course, we discover later that the AI is behind it all.
Yeah, they must have stolen the tech, or something along those lines. I mean, this tech managed to pull.
AI developed it.
Yeah. I mean, this tech managed to pull a Excelsior class ship. Because we see in the wreckage at the bottom of the cliff, the USS Cairo, which was actually Admiral Jellicoe's ship during TNG's episode the 2-part episode Chain of Command. And there was also apparently someone online said there was a second Excelsior class ship there too. And Cairo was, according to DS9's In the Pale Moonlight, the Cairo was supposed to be destroyed in the Dominion War. I think in the casualty list it was listed as, but apparently not. It was here. So kind of interesting little Easter egg that the animators put in there, and I'm kind of curious about that.
And given that the only appearance of Captain Jellicoe was in Chain of Command, and he was portrayed unsympathetically, I can't help wondering, were the DS9 writers like dumping on Jellicoe by having his ship turn up missing and presumed destroyed, and then here the writers have stepped back from that, but it got crashed. And all of his crew apparently got killed trying to be turned into pilots. And but Admiral Jellicoe himself was okay.
He was, I think, by the time of DS9, he wasn't like according to Memory Alpha, he wasn't a captain. There was a different captain of the ship then. So he'd got promoted or something by that point. But yeah, it's kind of interesting to see that. Yeah, I know. Admiral Jellicoe is the underrated, or in Captain Jellicoe, the underrated Starfleet captain, the one everyone hates, but who was right.
Yeah, there's also with Captain Jellicoe, he's actually doing more. I mean, not only is he right about loads of stuff, and is and in a way that's clear if you think about it, he's also secretly fulfilling a bunch of cast requests.
Right.
Because Picard did not want the fish in his office, and it had been part of the sets from season 1. But when Jellicoe shows up, he says, "Get that fish out of my office." And then it's not there anymore.
Yep.
And similarly, Marina Sirtis didn't like wearing the non-uniform, clothing that she was normally wearing. And so Captain Jellicoe tells her, "I'd appreciate it if you wore a standard Starfleet uniform." And from then on, she does. And so he was actually fulfilling the actor's requests.
Jellicoe is a sort of like we talk about the Riker before the beard and after the beard. There's a sort of TNG before Jellicoe, after Jellicoe as well. Which maybe that would be actually fun to develop that a little more, find out how the show improved after Jellicoe. So in this episode, Dal, his recklessness endangers Gwyn. I mean, during the race, he ends up like trying to win and bumping her and causing her stabilizer to destabilize.
Which starts fritzing.
Yeah, it creates
which they even use that word. Rock knows the English verb fritz.
Yeah, it's on the fritz. Is that like a World War II-ism, like having to do with like we talk about like jerry cans and stuff like that?
It may be a World War I-ism. I haven't looked that up.
It's interesting because fritz is a slang word for German, a German person. So kind of interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of those slang words that developed during one of the two world wars that we.
It's actually from. It's been attested as early as 1902, so it's pre-World War I, and it says perhaps from the German name. Of course, Fritz is a male German name, or perhaps it's onomatopoetic based on the sound of electrical sparks jumping.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yep, and that would be a relatively new phenomenon. Electricity. Electrical systems, electrical wiring being a new thing. So it was like, we already talked about the Kazon, interesting that the Kazon is not the villain, so being manipulated himself. But there was an out of control megalomaniacal AI trying to improve limited beings, which was a theme we kind of got in Lower Decks.
Starfleet has a whole compound for housing such entities. They should take this one there.
Yeah.
Yes, back at the Daystrom Institute.
And it seemed like the sort of thing you would see in TOS pretty frequently. Like those old scientists were always running into computers that were run amok and doing their own thing.
Yeah, they should have had Jeffrey Coombs doing the voice of this one too. that would have been. I mean, it might have been too far, but man, just having him do the AI, in Lower Decks was so much fun. And we have seen these planet-side Kazon training facilities before. We did an episode of Voyager not long ago. Well, in my recollection, not long ago, where the Voyager crew had to go to one of these planet-side training facilities. So it was the one with Aaron Eisenberg playing the Kazon young person. So we have seen these before. So that's an interesting callback.
One thing I wondered about in this episode is, did the AI, was it partially based on Borg technology? Because it's got mind control. It's associated with a with a transwarp corridor.
Right.
And it's got mind control technologies that is based on mechanical implants.
Yeah.
So it's not like in Return of the Archons, where they have mind control technology, but it's not based on sticking something in your head.
Yeah.
Here it is based on sticking something in your head. So Murph, I have in my notes that once he's under its control, he's been Borgified because it's put implants on him. And so they don't say, but I couldn't help wondering if this AI is partially based on Borg.
I had the same thought. I actually wrote, is this some sort of proto-Borg that split off or something almost?
Both
that
froze.
he's just got this transwarp corridor. He's trying to get the better technology, supposedly, from the different groups passing through, and trying to get the best pilots. And in this case, instead of assimilating everyone and getting to, perfect them, so to speak, it's sort of a elimination of all the imperfect to get to the perfect one.
It's true. That's an interesting idea. Is that somehow the Kazon had tried to adapt Borg tech to their own uses. Although we didn't really see Borgs with AIs, like in independent computer systems like that. They themselves were the computer systems.
That was so the 1990s.
I know. Today it would probably be different. Yeah. So Zero's sacrifice, Zero is being like like all these AIs, they have to have physical appendages, and it looks like Doc Ock, and it's got all these arms, that grappler arms, are grabbing people from all directions. And so Zero is being held by his limbs, those various limbs, and has to basically, as you mentioned, Jimmy, break them off in order to launch himself at the AI.
Yeah, it turns out he's got a thruster in the back of his central bubble that his arms and legs are attached to, so it's holding him by the arms and the legs, and then he turns on his thruster and forces the bubble away from his arms and legs that are being held so he can smash into the AI.
Yeah, and so self-sacrifice, dangerous self-sacrifice, because if the suit broke open and he was exposed, he could have driven everyone else
go crazy.
Yeah. So, but so the suit is damaged, it is cracked, and that's very dangerous for everyone here. And I'm curious how this, was constraints make for good stories, and so now Zero is constrained in what he can do going forward. I'm curious how that will affect the ongoing story. The one thing about Prodigy is they keep surprising me with how they change up from what you expect. They don't necessarily do the expected thing, or they leap forward to do new things.
Well, they keep surprising me and they keep not surprising me. It's kind of a mix.
Yeah, that's true. But as we get to the ending, this whole thing of what is this? Yeah, these tentacles, making the Gwyn hologram disappear.
While everything else stops on the ship.
Yeah.
I'm guessing it's something to do with the diviner, what's her people, the Valnakat 100 ships going out, and probably, what's her name? The villain, Essentia, yes. Coming to get her somehow.
Could be. I think there's another possibility too, but we'll have to see.
Yeah. So, anything else you want to say about this one, Father? Any other notes on this one?
Just one little comment, and that was that there was a thing at one point when they're on the planet, and I think it was Dow or someone made a reference to wasting light years, as though light years was a unit of time rather than distance.
Right.
It makes you think back to that whole. What was it in Star Wars about the...
she did the Kessel Run in 4.6 light years or whatever.
Yeah, or in something less than certain parsecs or whatever, which they retconned later on.
Yeah.
One of the newer movies.
Yep.
All my other notes are things we talked about already today. So,
okay. How about you, Jimmy? Any other notes?
Let's see. One of the things that I was trying to track at the end of the episode was how the personalities are arranged in the holograms. And it looks to me, I could be wrong about this because they haven't given us a good, clear look at this. And I didn't go back to the previous episode to check. But just based on this episode, it looks like Jankum's personality is in Rock. Zero's personality is in Dal. And then and Murph's personality is in Gwyn. And so I conjecture that rather than a random shuffle where anybody's personality could end up in anybody, I conjecture that they've just personality swapped two individuals in units of two, so that since Jankum's personality is in Rock, Rock's personality will be in Jankum.
Right.
And Murph's personality will be in Gwen, and Gwen's personality will be in Murph, and so forth. So we'll have to see how that plays out and if I'm right, but just based on the tiny little amount we had in this episode, that was how it appeared to me.
And by having Hollow Gwen disappear, she couldn't really communicate except in, the Murph's little burbles.
Yeah.
So that's not a big loss. And so now we have Gwen personality in Murph, and that should be interesting to see how.
Hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah. How D. Bradley Baker does Gwen in Murph speak. That should be interesting. Excellent. So we've got some feedback on. Well, actually, I didn't point out, by the way, the title of this episode, incidentally, Fast and the Curious, just to put a pin in it. It's based on the movie The Fast and the Furious, the franchise, and racing. So just in case someone didn't know. So our feedback is on our last episode in Imposter Syndrome, and we had this long discussion in there about things that we could watch over and over again, and that's what this is based on. Intermarifica writes on our YouTube channel, great episode. That was great, Dom, that you've read The Lord of the Rings many times. My wife recently asked me how many times I'd read Lord of the Rings, and I thought about it and said I really don't know. In a sense, too many times to count. As for the rereading/rewatching discussion, a really important criteria for me to see if a book, a movie, etc. is actually good or not is how it fares on a second go through. If it can't handle a rewatch, it probably isn't really that great. If it gets better and better with multiple go-throughs, that's a good sign it's a masterpiece, like Star Wars 1-6, Lord of the Rings, The Undiscovered Country, etc.
Well, Star Wars 4 and 5 for my money, but sure. Also, check out Citizen Kane. Definitely improves on multiple rewatches.
Yes, I would say for me, Star Wars 4-6. I'll take the original trilogy, but my guess is Intermarifica. I bet you're a millennial, or at least a zennial, an older millennial. I find that they like the prequels a lot.
Mm-hmm. Well,
excellent.
De gustibus non est disputandum.
That's right. That's right. And Undiscovered Country is one of the better.
Oh, I think it's definitely the best. Yeah. I think it's the best. Yeah. But that's me. If you prefer Khan or whales, that's okay.
All right, great. So we'd like to take a moment now to thank our patrons and make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Star Trek, including Jenny, Teresa C., Adam P., Sandra C., and Mark L. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Trek and all the shows at StarQuest, and you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. This StarQuest show is also brought to you by Exodus 90 and the Exodus 90 app, a daily companion to help you grow closer to God and to become the man you want to be. This summer, join the Enthronement to the Sacred Heart, the Exodus 90 Summer Book Club, and St. Michael's Lent, beginning August 15th and leading up to the Feast of St. Michael the Archangel on September 29th. Go to exodus90.com/SQPN for a 14-day free trial to the Exodus 90 app and to learn more about St. Michael's Lent. That's exodus90.com/SQPN to join us for St. Michael's Lent starting August 15th. So that's it from us this time. What did you think of The Fast and the Curious? You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/trek, our Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. Send an email to trek@sqpn.com or visit our Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. You can watch us also on the Secrets of Star Trek on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/StarQuestMedia, where you should also leave a comment as well as hit the like button and subscribe. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the next episode of Prodigy, Is There in Beauty No Truth?
Oh,
which is
there's going to be a cracked Zero encounter suit.
That's right. Until then, Father Jason Tyler, thank you for joining me and sharing the Secrets of Star Trek.
Thanks, Dom.
Jimmy Akin, thank you as well.
Thank you, and live long and prosper.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Star Trek on StarQuest, and remember, what in Stovacor is on our ship?